Welcome to Chuco Chica, where we dive into the cultural aspects that shape and influence the entrepreneur and passionpreneur spirit within our society. Whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur seeking inspiration or simply curious about the journeys of a successful individual, then this podcast is a treasure trove of knowledge and motivation. Tune in every Saturday to discover the strategies and lessons learned of these individuals that have propelled them to succeed in their world of business. With a passion for sneakers and an eye for business, Jimmy ventured into the world of footwear and carved his path to success. As the owner of Sneaker Capital, he's not just building a business, he's creating a culture around sneakers. His journey is marked by innovation, dedication, and an unwavering commitment to his vision. What sets Jimmy apart isn't about his entrepreneurial spirit alone, but it's his ability to connect. With a community of nearly 15,000 followers on Instagram and an astounding 224,000 followers on TikTok, he is not only influencing trends, but shaping the conversation around sneaker culture. Join us as we explore the story behind Sneaker Capital, the challenges of entrepreneurship, and the secret to Jimmy McNellis' success. Jimmy, I am beyond excited to have you here today. Thank you for making the time and coming on the show.
Yes, of course. I'm so excited to be here. So I'm going to talk about how I started Sneaker Capital. I'm the only owner of Sneaker Capital, and I started from the ground up. So it's a business that I'm very passionate about. I love sneakers, and I love to resell things. So stay tuned, and you guys can kind of learn what were my challenges and inspirations to this overall business as well. So
Awesome. Before we get into the video, I wanted to gift you a little something because this shop was going to be a little shop to sell mugs with chocolate de abuelita bombs. I'm gifting you a little Mexican jarrito mug. You can give it to your mom, your grandma, or you can keep it for yourself.
sell it.
You can sell it if you want. It's gonna go for $1 million.
So cool.
It's from Juarez. So
Wow.
yeah.
This is very nice. Thank you so much. I appreciate
You
that.
are very welcome. You can put your
You guys can find this on my eBay page.
you can put your creatine in there.
Oh, yeah. For pre-workout.
Your pre-workout. I don't know
I'm
if you
going to
take
drop
creatine.
it and break his first day. But let's probably not do that. Okay, I'll put it right there.
Okay. So I just wanted to know a little bit about your inspiration behind Sneaker Capital, how it came about, and if you had somebody to look up to at home regarding business.
So definitely one person I look up to is definitely my dad.
Okay.
He isn't really into business. He does construction, but my parents have always resold stuff at antique shows and gun shows. And growing up, I would go to the gun shows with them when I was like 3 years old, and I'd sleep under the table because I'd have
You
to
were
be
tired.
there, and I would sell candy bars at the gun shows for $1 and like make people feel bad and buy the chocolate bars for me. So I've always had that reselling like aspect to me.
Yeah.
I always try to make money. Even before chocolate bars, I would draw like pictures and then I would charge $1 and then I'd charge them an extra $1 if they wanted them colored. So I would draw like a big SpongeBob on the whole page or
That's
whatever.
awesome.
So that's always where it kind of started. I always kind of was a person to make money. And yeah, of course, like I played video games and I would spend my money on video games for the first, 10 years of my life, I'd say. But definitely that's what kind of inspired me to like kind of get into more business related stuff.
Very cool. And how old were you when you were selling these little...
I don't know. I think the drawings, I mean, I've been going to the gun shows for as long as I remember. Probably like, 3, I was sleeping under the table. So definitely up until I was like 10, 11, until I could start staying home by myself. So my parents, like they have always came from a working background. Like my parents by all means are not rich. They weren't wealthy. We lived in a little house by Thorn Street for a while, and it was a big obstacle for us to overcome that. My mom hated the house just because we were right next to a Goodwill. So you would hear like in the middle of the night, the dumpster, hitting and loud music being played. And I was still a baby. So it was like just a tough time for my mom because she didn't like the noise. Who likes noise right next to their house, and you don't know how dangerous those people can be. You never know. Just wasn't a safe environment. But my parents saved up. They always had a mindset to save their money. And we go on vacation, but it's once a year, like that's what we look forward to. And when we would, I guess my parents would always save. So like for example, that house, they ended up selling it. My dad ended up buying the land over where we live now, and he built the house. And of course, it took a lot of months of planning and stuff to be able to build that house, and we lived in a trailer for months as well. So it was definitely a big obstacle for us, but I kind of always learned to have that saving mentality. You know, my dad goes to work at 5 in the morning and comes home at 5 6 p.m. if he has to. Sometimes people will call him because the water's there's water leakage, you know, because the pipe wasn't put on right or something, and my dad has to go and fix it, you know.
He has to drop what he's doing and
Exactly.
just go.
And then every 5 minutes, he's getting a phone call, you know, somebody either calling for something, or the laborer calling, or his subcontractor calling. So I always see him on the move. And then on the weekends, like, yeah, finally you could rest. No, not with them. Like, it was either a gun show, or my dad would go to a flea market and sell some junk that he had to make that extra money, pay that extra bill, put that money aside to save it. So there's always a room for saving, you know. So definitely that's where it kind of came from.
That's amazing. And do you think that his work ethic, let me see. Do you think seeing his work ethic over time made you guys successful? Are you guys living comfortably now? Are you
Definitely he doesn't get like a retirement or whatever. So it's definitely a little more where he has to keep saving, you know. I think my dad is now what, 65, you know. So he still hasn't retired, you know. And the money that he's able to spend, he buys silver to kind of have that as a savings or like as a retirement, you know.
an
So
investment?
as an investment, because when you're self-employed, that's the thing that sucks about having your own business a lot of times, is that you don't get that retirement money, you know. You could retire, but you might not get that much on your social security, you know. So that's the thing, you always have to kind of, you know, not all businesses succeed or they don't go good, you know. But I think if you're passionate enough for a business, it will work out, you know, as long as you really hit it and really are determined that you don't start sidetracking. I feel like every business is essentially honestly successful, you know, as long as you put your head in the right spot, you know.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. Is his retirement, is that something that worries you? Because he doesn't have like a retirement backfall.
Most definitely. I am an only child, so that is something that I'm gonna have to take over. You know, if they can't pay those bills or they can't pay the property taxes, whatever, I'm gonna have to be paying that. And of course, the benefit to me is like, yeah, the house is gonna be mine, but it is something that you have to kind of consider. You know, like it's not always gonna be that he's making money. You know, I might have to be the bread producer. You know, so that's something you got to kind of take into account. But yeah, that's always been something that I always overwork, you know. As much as I have my sneaker business, on the weekends I'm a server, you know. And I'm always saving my money. I'm very low maintenance compared to some of the money that I make sometimes. I always save, always looking for what I can do in my future with that money rather than spending it or splurging it on something that I don't need right now, you know. Materialistic items. You know, I used to have a Corvette, a couple years ago. Sold it right away because I felt too materialistic, you know. I bought a little Altima. Now I drive that around. It's not a beautiful car. It's direct in the bumper. I could fix the bumper, but do I need to? No, you know. So it's like something that you shouldn't be materialistic. At least for me, my mindset's not to be materialistic now. You know, work, grind, put your head down, forget the partying, forget all that. Get ahead before these other people that snap out of these partying phases start working, you know, because you're already going to be ahead. You're already going to be years ahead.
You're going to have that mindset to
exactly
support you.
So I think that's something that's important. A lot of people will come to me and say like, oh, like you're like daddy's money, you know, all the money that you have, like that's all what your parents give you. And like, well, from the outside, you can see my parents like they're well off, you know, like by all means we live comfortably, but it's blood, sweat, and tear. It's blood, sweat, and tears. You know, it's not just money being given to you. And I see a lot of people that have generational wealth that are smart people and are able to use that money to benefit themselves. But there's also people that have that generational wealth that don't use it for anything good. You know, they just get breastfed that money, you know, as weird as it sounds, you know.
So how do you feel when people tell you your daddy's money?
You have to kind of just
or
like,
assume?
it's something that does like
Does it
hit.
upset you?
It does upset me, but at the end of the day, you have to kind of put that aside and kind of be like, you know what, like, it is what it is, like,
You're not going to sit there and tell them your whole life story.
exactly. You have to stay humble no matter what. You can't be trying to argue or fight. Sometimes you just gotta brush it off and move on. Even if it does upset you, it does affect you, you just gotta keep moving. You gotta keep walking.
Awesome.
That's how it is.
So I want you to share with me the idea and the process of sneaker capital.
Okay, so it's honestly like a long story, long road that it's been through. But essentially, I started working at McDonald's when I was, what, 15 years old. And I remember, I worked there for like a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And I would work Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And I was, what, a sophomore in high school. So I'd go after work on Thursday, go to work, or after school on Thursday and go to work. Same on Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday I would work like double shifts. I was just always working off the bat. And yeah, at first having that big paycheck, I would spend all my money on clothes and whatever I could think of. I was just a young kid, didn't know what money was. I saw money in my account, and my thought was to spend it.
Yeah.
And I started overdrafting my account all the time, and I was like, what am I doing? What am I doing?
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I saw something bigger to it. At the time, my parents had given me a little Honda Civic,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like a 1999. Super grateful for that car. Um, it did its trick. It did its job. Whatever. And I remember my dad asked me. He's like, "Do you want a car? Like, I can get it for you, and you're gonna have to just pay me."
Mm-hmm.
You know. So I was like, it could be like, at first I thought it was just an idea that was being put out there. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, well, what car would you like? And I said, a Jeep. So a couple months later, my dad pulls into the driveway with the Jeep.
I remember you having
Exactly.
a Jeep.
So he
The white
pulled,
one, right?
it was a white,
Yeah.
a white Rubicon. Loved the Jeep, loved it. But now I had a debt that I had to pay.
Okay.
So at the time, what was I making at McDonald's? Like 400, maybe 500 if I was lucky, every 2 weeks. So I was
Uh-huh.
paying 250 a month to my dad to pay off that car.
Mm-hmm.
So it was definitely a little like
It
situation.
was your first bill.
Yeah, it was honestly my first bill, and that was all I paid at the time, plus insurance, whatever. So I would pay that every month. And eventually I just didn't have any money to myself because
Okay.
so much of my paycheck or my paychecks were going to that, you know? So, and then gas, it was a lot of stuff right off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
a car loan or a car, like, I mean, that wasn't essentially like a car loan because I was paying back my dad, but
Mm-hmm.
car loans can definitely
It was
mess.
a payback to my dad loan.
Yeah, exactly. So it was just a very,
So with that, like I guess first bill when you were 15, that's kind of what like started your mind and juices flowing of like I need to make a business.
yeah, I just was like, I need to start reselling stuff. That was my main thing. Wasn't reselling sneakers. It wasn't really to start my own business, but just to resell things
Okay.
because I knew my parents would make money reselling stuff. I can make money reselling
Okay.
stuff.
Gotcha.
So at the time, I think it was right around the time that COVID hit, I think.
Okay.
Somewhere around that timeline. Um, or not even. I think I was working at McDonald's first. I was paying off the Jeep for like the first year. Then the next year after that was when COVID hit. If I'm not mistaken, it was like my junior year when COVID hit.
Mm-hmm.
Like the second half of my junior year. And I was still at McDonald's. So I remember I was working at McDonald's with my mask on, whatever. Of course, stuff had changed, but I was still working. And a lot of stuff was becoming sold out because a lot of stuff was getting delayed in production.
Mm-hmm.
So either stuff had very low stock numbers on a lot of collectible items,
Are
or
you
like
saying for collectible items for the shoes?
it wasn't even shoes. It was just
Oh, reselling
it was
in
just
general.
reselling
Okay,
in
okay.
general. So a lot of items, a lot of products, a lot of like little collectors items were not being produced as high, like number wise.
Mm-hmm.
So people were looking for these items. So when I had a whole Discord server that I joined, and I don't even know how I really got into that Discord server, but I did.
It just
It
happened.
just happened. So I started getting into that Discord server. They started telling me like what's profitable, what you can resell, whatever. And I remember I would start buying like these Disney pins or like Disney collector's items that would release every single month. and I started making like double my money on some of those items. So I was like, okay, this is something that's kind of cool.
And you would resell on eBay,
and I
or?
would, at the time I was relisting all the stuff on eBay. I would list it as pre-order items. Even before it gets to my house, I would list the item like as a product. It would sell, and then once it would come in, I would just repackage it and ship it. I wouldn't do drop shipping just because of the fact that I didn't know how eBay can ban you for drop shipping.
Oh, okay.
Or at the time they were a little more enforced on that. So I just had it shipped to my house. I would repackage it, and also so I could see the item, make sure it's not damaged. Also, when it gets to me first.
Right.
So I was able to send that out, make double my money, and just keep reinvesting. And then once I started making some money towards myself, I started paying more towards the Jeep because I was making more money. So then I started paying like $500 every 2 weeks, and then $1,000.
Did your dad ever ask like, "Whoa, where's this money coming from?"
No, because my parents saw it. I remember I would be in a Zoom call my senior year is when it was like kind of really kicking off, and because that's when we were all in lockdown, and it was all virtual. So I would remember I would join my first 2 classes, and like orders would be like people were knocking on the door with like the post office, whatever, dropping off packages, and I would be packaging stuff while just listening to my class.
Your Zoom call.
Exactly.
That's so funny. Yeah.
Either that or I was at the gym as well. Either or I was still I wasn't really paying attention to the class my senior year.
Yeah.
And me being a book like geek, for the majority of high school, it was definitely like a good change in my lifestyle, because for the longest time I thought I was going to be an engineer. That was my biggest thing, So that's something that, it just instantly switched, that reselling aspect. It kind of clicked in, and I was like, I'm making money. Time to switch to reselling, time to switch to business.
I like how you chose to dedicate that time to yourself, to your business, because, unfortunately COVID was such a huge impact in a bad way, but we were in lockdown, and we were in lockdown. We had no choice, but people were stressed out. People were scared. I know I was scared, and for the majority of that time during COVID, I was in my room watching Netflix, not doing anything. I was scared, and until I guess a switch happened, and I was like, you know what, let me make a YouTube video. And then I was making YouTube videos during COVID. And so I like how your creative aspect was, still going to the gym or working on your investment business.
I definitely agree with you. I think that is something that it has a huge impact. Like COVID had a huge impact on all of us, but time is super important. And, you have to sometimes you have to kind of snap out of it, because you can waste a lot of time by not, doing something, even if it's like not something that's making you money. For example, YouTube probably wasn't making you money off the bat, but it's something that you were passionate about, at least you're doing something productive rather than doing what everybody is doing, just laying around or just waiting for the pandemic to be over. I saw like a opportunity in the pandemic to kind of start, reselling. And then, so on top of all that reselling stuff, to continue, after reselling, after making a little bit of money on eBay here and there, I joined this raffle on Instagram. And it was Soul Resell, I remember. That was his username. And he's like a millionaire now. He has like sneaker stores and stuff.
Is he from El Paso?
He is not from El Paso. He is I don't know
somewhere out there.
Yeah, but he's definitely a big content creator. And at the time he was doing I guess in like a kind of like an attic looking thing. He had a bunch of shoes, and there was like hundreds of people in his life. But these raffles were intense. Basically, they put 2 names on a wheel, and for you to be on the wheel, it was $150 that you would either Cash App him, Apple Pay, whatever. He'd put you on one side. He'd spin the wheel. If it lands on you, you win a shoe. If it doesn't, you lose $150.
Okay.
And casinos were locked down at the time. Or a lot of casinos had a lot of restrictions. So people weren't going to casinos, and people were getting that nice stimulus check. So people had a lot of money, had a lot of free time.
And they still had that, like, I guess, urge to
gamble, right?
Win a game.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's when sneaker raffles on Instagram became a big thing. And I mean, he was like the first person to start that,
Okay.
But I ended up, spending some money, spending a little too much money. And I remember I ended up winning 4 pairs of shoes. And I was like, what if I start a sneaker page? What if I start doing raffles? Because if I was to sell these shoes on StockX or sell them on eBay, I would make probably half of what I could make if I raffled them. So I was like, I'm down all this money. If I get these 4 shoes, I might as well just raffle them myself.
Okay.
And I remember I started my page that way. And at first, it was a struggle. Like, I would go live every single night. I'd go live for 2-3 hours, and I'd have 2-3 viewers in my live, you know?
Would they win a shoe?
I remember at the time, it became pretty easy to get more viewers over time because I started following all these pages that were doing raffles as well.
Oh, I see.
And then that way, I was able to kind of grow my audience a little bit. And once I started joining their lives, I started joining my lives. And then I made my own like raffle template. So basically my raffle template was a little different than that $150 1v1 because $150 is a lot of money.
Just let it be. Just let it be. Go for it.
So I made my own raffle template.
Okay, yeah.
And it was different than that $150 that you could lose just off the bat. But basically I made it $40, 10 spots.
Okay.
So instead of losing 150, you're risking $40 for essentially a 10% chance. But what made that even better was that I had like mini brackets,
mini raffles,
like mini brackets,
okay,
or like minis that would get you into the main. So the minis would be like $5 times what? 8 spots. $5 times 8 spots, and then that'd get you into the main. So you would spend $5 and you could potentially get a main spot. So essentially you could win the raffle for $5. So then my post consisted of win a shoe for $5. Even though the main spots were 40, you could essentially win for 5. And I had many winners that would win for 5.
Yeah.
And my raffles by all means were not rigged. It was all legit, you know, even if my best friend put $20 in, he wasn't going to win if it didn't land on him. Exactly. Like I had one of my best friends, his name's Tony.
Shout out Tony.
Shout out to Tony, for real. He would join my raffles, and I remember one time he had like 6 main spots in my raffle. He lost.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was he upset?
He was kind of upset, yeah. But it happens, you know. I just had to make sure it's fair because as a business, you want to have that trust. You want to have that legitimacy. You want to have those references, you know. You don't want to do anyone dirty because it could always come and bite you in the butt, you know. So you always have to look out for your customers, you know. It doesn't matter if they're buying 1 shoe or if they're buying 10
or if they're buying a sock.
Or if they're buying a sock or if they're even giving you a hard time, you know. Like you got to be professional because at the end of the day, you can't stoop down to their level because that's a business stooping down to a regular consumer's level, you know.
If it does get intense.
If it does get intense, exactly. So if someone comes and tries to attack me or tries to message me something mean, you got to kind of be in a professional standpoint and be like, you know what, I'm sorry, man, you know, I can't do that, or apologies, sorry for the inconvenience.
Cool. Yeah,
right.
Awesome. So, I like that.
So basically raffles were definitely like the big boom to my business. I'm not saying Sneaker Capital isn't anything than what it was back then, but definitely raffles aren't a thing on my page anymore. There is raffle pages out there where you can, you know, gamble money and do raffles, but I was at a point where I made really good money off raffles, but essentially it's not 100% allowed, you know, and to pay tax on it, it's not really possible. So I had to kind of mark it as sales. It was a very tough year for me to do taxes on it just because you don't know, it's like a $20 or $30 payment to me on Cash App. How am I supposed to declare it as a sale? So it's definitely a little difficult to kind of see how to pay tax on it. But I did some research and I was able to get it paid for, get it done. And I figured that raffles wasn't a way for me it wasn't a long-term thing. I had to move into something where it was just solely a business. So that's what I did. I used that capital to start buying inventory and just start to resell. And that's something that I do now. I don't have a storefront. I was looking into getting a storefront, but it wasn't something that worked out for me. So I just wanted to keep it on a local meetup shipping option. And I want to move into real estate properties and investment properties in the future. So sneakers isn't something that's long-term for me. It's something that's part of my journey, and I love to talk about it. And it's something that I will continue to do for the next couple years. but it's definitely going to be something that I get out of eventually.
So sneaker capital is one of the factors that is kind of changing your perspective of not being an engineer, but more business and real estate.
Well, yeah, honestly, Sneaker Capital was the thing that kind of switched me over to from engineering to business because I was a 4.0. I was a 4. I think my GPA was like a 4.11 after high school, even after my senior year and me taking just elective classes just to focus on sneakers and stuff. Well, I didn't even think I was going to focus on sneakers. I just took those electives because I was kind of already done, you know? Um, but it's good that I took those electives. I didn't have to take any hard classes. But yeah, like it was definitely a switch because I was taking engineering classes up until my senior year, you know?
Right.
And then I started taking drafting classes my senior year to kind of open the world of drafting for me, architectural drafting. But after that, I just kind of like, it just kind of snapped. I was like, I don't want to do engineering. I never really liked it. I just liked the math, you know?
Oh, okay.
I just did it because I want to make my parents proud and make money as an engineer. Because engineering is a good major. It's a good business or a good job that you can get after high school or after college. But it's not. If you don't like it, it could feel dreadful. You know.
I think that's a huge thing. Is like in your career, you have to feel good. You have to feel happy. You don't have to go to work sad and depressed because it's not something you want to do. So I'm glad that this kind of woke you up in a way.
Yeah.
So I want to know, have you had any scandals meeting up with people dropping off shoes from Sneaker Capital, your customers, or like what's the cutoff on times that you like, I guess, go out there and drop off shoes?
Honestly, like my flexibility for meetups is relatively there just because people aren't able to meet always when I'm able to. Or when I say I can meet. So I have to kind of be more available and more open to when they can meet. But definitely the latest meetup that I've probably done is like 1 a.m, and that was actually last night. And
That is not safe.
it's not safe, but it is a meetup with somebody that has done business with me before. So you kind of got to take that into account. It's not a first time buyer. First time buyer, definitely not going to meet that late, especially if it's a little sketchy how we're having the conversation or whatever. But yeah, one scandal that did actually occur to me was actually like probably a year already it's been.
Okay.
But this guy had messaged me saying that he had a pair of Jordan 6 Travis Scotts. And this is back when the Travis Scott hype was there and the shoes were going for a good bit. Brand new, I think I was going to give him like $700, but we agreed on $750 trade credit. So he picked like 5 pretty cheap pairs that I had, and we agreed to meet up. And at the time it was at the time that I still had the Jeep, so it probably was like almost 2 years ago actually. But I pull up in my Jeep, whatever. My phone's about to die, so you already know it's going bad. It's going bad. My phone's like at 5%. When I pull up to the meetup, I told him I was gonna legit check them. So I'm taking pictures, whatever.
How do you check them? Legit check them?
So there's an app that I use. Of course I do my own check.
Yeah.
Each shoe has its own, like, you can kind of tell, you know. Some fakes are really bad. Some fakes are 1-to-1. They look exactly the same. It's a very small detail. In this case, they looked pretty good. The only thing that was throwing me off was the box. So I told the guy I need to check them before we could do a trade. I should have known. He started acting a little sketchy. He's like, hey, bro, like, I'm in a rush. If anything, I'll give you the money back. Like, I need to go.
Ooh.
And I should have known. And I could already feel like my heart dropped even going to the meetup.
Ooh.
And right when I took the pictures of the shoe, my phone had died.
No.
So I plugged it into my Jeep, of course. But of course, when you plug it into your car, it takes a bit, right? So I'm driving home because he had already left, and I had his shoe.
You got the shoes.
I got his shoe, and he got my 5 pairs.
So you did the trade.
I did the trade, of course.
And you gave him.
I gave him 5 pairs.
Oh, that was a
trade.
That
was a trade.
Yeah,
I gave him 5 pairs, and he gave me a pair of Travis Scotts, Jordan 6 Travis Scotts, British khaki. They're on my page. No, I'm just kidding. But like a couple minutes later, the check comes back, and they were fake.
Oh.
So I messaged the guy, and he's like, yeah, I'll get right back. Like, I called him right away. I'm like, hey, bro, they're fake. Like, get over here. And like, I was kind of panicking because it's not like I just lost $100. It's like I lost $700, you know? Like, it's an expensive pair. So he ended up telling me, like, I'll meet you back later. He wouldn't meet up with me. And when I was initially asking him about the pair, how he had gotten it, he sent me to this page that sold it to him. So I went to that page and I told him, like, hey, bro, this guy that you sold the pair to sold them to me and they're fake. Is there any way you could take them back since they're fake? He's like, well, yeah, I knew that they were fake. I sold them to him as fake, but he told me he was going to wear them. So I wasn't trying to screw you over, but luckily he was able to buy them off of me. I still lost about $300. He didn't give me the full amount, but he made it right, which he didn't have to. He didn't have to because he was the original owner that sold it to that guy. Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah, but it happens. I mean,
so when you see that pair of shoes like on somebody else's feet, does it kind of like bring you back trauma?
I actually have a real pair now.
Oh, that's the great comeback.
It's a great comeback, right? But it's actually on sale on my page. Check it out. Check it out on the Jordan 6 highlight, right?
Nice.
Yes.
So now in meetups, you make sure your phone's charged?
Make sure my phone is charged. Well,
for the most part.
For the most part. Yes.
So how do you know what's in stock? How do you keep a track of like all your shoes? Where are they? I know when I first met you, I went to your house and I just saw a bunch of shoes in the corner and you're like, yeah, my mom doesn't like that to be there.
I have an inventory spreadsheet now, so I kind of keep track. And then I have like my storage. It's organized by shoe type, so I know where like everything is. Like I have a brand new area. I have my Yeezys, I have my Dunks, I have my Jordan 1s, and like the middle pile that's like a mess. That's in like my TikTok videos. That's like pairs that I just arrived. But inventory spreadsheet was definitely the best thing for me because it kind of shows how much I paid for an item, how much I am listing it for, and the size, what shoe, if it has a replacement box, no box, smells bad, I don't know.
But have you traded shoes that smell bad?
I have not. I've had shoes that smell like weed or marijuana. You know, sometimes you buy shoes from like potheads. And yeah, like one time I had a brand new shoe and it smelled like weed, and I let it air out and it doesn't smell like that anymore.
Oh, okay, see.
But sometimes it has a really strong smell.
So you smell every shoe you get?
I don't smell it like necessarily. I don't try to smell it. Just kind of. I can smell those right now that you got on you,
Jimmy. I'm gonna cry. Just kidding. I actually bought these from you.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
Show your shoes. And what are they?
These are Union 1s, Union black toes, and they're a pretty expensive pair. This pair is actually used. It's a pretty used pair, but it's really nice. It has a lot of history to it. I know a lot of like sneaker stores only have Dunks and like some of the newer releases, and by all means, like keep the trends what they are right now, you know. But this is a pair that definitely has a lot of history. It's an older pair, brand new is probably a good $2,000, you know. But it's a very nice pair, you know. It's just something that resembles what I kind of started as sneaker culture, you know.
Yeah.
Because I did the sneakers based on the sneaker culture, you know. I always liked the sneaker culture and what it was about. So
I like that. Very nice. How can we connect with you?
So I have my Instagram page. That's like my main form of like business for sneakers, and that is Sneaker Capital. I have my eBay page as well. eBay is a little bit trickier to search up. You have to kind of search a product to go to my page, unless you go on your computer. But if you guys need help finding my eBay, just contact me on Sneaker Capital and
on Instagram.
You can do that on Instagram, and that's Jimmy the Donkey on eBay. And then also I have my TikTok as well. I'm trying to post more consistently. I'm trying to get back into that. So TikTok also Sneaker Capital, and my personal page is Jimmy the Grandma. So if you guys need anything, let me know. Any shoes, any sneaker desires, I'll get you guys right.
Okay, yeah, I love it. So yeah, thank you so much again for taking the time and coming out here and being my first Chuco Chica guest.
I am so glad I was able to be the first guest. I think that is great. I think it's a great concept. It's a great podcast that can become something even better. So definitely strive, definitely push through, and bring some more guests on here, see what they have to talk about, you know, because there's a lot of struggles to all sorts of businesses, you know.
Absolutely. And with that being said, tune in next Saturday for our next special guest. Adios.